summer, I was a little taken back with 4 Jewish people, I believe, and 3 gay and lesbian people. And
what am I doing here?
So, through the wonders of technology, I, who love music, and many of you sang in Mr. G's choir with me years ago, I continue to love music. In fact, getting ready for the reunion here, I love Sirius Radio, the 60s music I've been listening to. So I had a song all set on my smartphone. My 16-year-old grandson helped me get that in here. And then I show up and it says, "You're not in the internet." And I said, "Well, Bruce McLean must know the password." So here's the song. I still love to sing. I haven't sung this one for a while. The Byrds did it much better than me, but here it is. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die. A time to plant, a time to reap. A time to kill, a time to heal. A time to laugh, a time to weep. And it goes on, of course. I'll mention some of the themes that are lifted up in this song. Back in 1969, we who graduated high school that year experienced significant change. I remember leaving the all-night graduation party and thinking, I will never have the security of high school's rhythm again. And indeed, I felt the whole world was changing. Cindy kind of decided to change that summer too and leave me for a while. I think you all love the image of the monarch butterfly with the chrysalis. I felt we had been in the chrysalis of high school, and now we were emerging and spreading our wings, starting new adventures in college or vocational schools, the military, or new jobs. The world we were living in was changing too, with significant events such as the first walk on the moon and Woodstock later that summer. Our life was revolving around reports from Vietnam on the news every night. And in September, Doug Chatfield was killed accidentally, the first of our class. A time to be born, a time to die. In the 1970s, 5 more of our classmates died, while most of us were building up our lives with college degrees and perhaps our first real jobs, time in military service. Some were marrying or finding life partners, some even starting families. It was a decade of planting and reaping, of laughing and weeping, a time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. And thankfully, in 1975, the U.S. withdrew from the Vietnam War. In the 1980s, we experienced times to laugh and dance with amazing advances in medical and digital technology that many of us standing here today benefit from. The growth of the global internet and the World Wide Web. The thawing of the Cold War and the fall of the Berlin Wall. But there were also times to weep and mourn as our world experienced the growth of the AIDS epidemic and terrorism, including the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, with 270 deaths, including our classmate, Judy Bernstein. 7 other classmates died too young in those years, our 30s, including my good friend Rick Hogan, who died of Huntington's disease. In our 40s, the 1990s, world communism, which we had always lived under, and remember those grade school days under the desks? World communism collapsed to our amazement, and capitalism spread, and business and travel opportunities began in Eastern Europe. Perhaps some of you have traveled or benefited from those. Apartheid ended in South Africa. It was a decade of steady economic growth, which thankfully was good for our 401ks if we were putting money in at the time, and significant technological advancements, such as personal computers, became part of our life. But before the year 2000 began on time, in spite of the worries of Y2K, 13 more classmates had died. In the 2000s, or the double O's, we could call them now, we were brought out of American isolation by the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. And we began to live a new life in America with security restrictions, the war on terror, and wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We also went through the housing crisis and the credit crisis and the deepest recession since the 1930s. Climate change and global warming became common news items. But smartphones and GPS navigation became common too, which has been a tremendous gift to us. But the decade saw our class death rate double to 26. So now we're in this last decade, which has seen continuing change as social media expands and online shopping reduces brick and mortar retail. Societal change includes legal marriage for same-sex couples and more acceptance of diversity in our culture. We baby boomers are rapidly retiring, including many of us. Not all of us, but many of us. And as we celebrate our 50th class reunion, we begin to see aging's effects on us as more classmates, 46 more in the last 10 years, have died. So since our graduation in 1969, each decade has given us changes and challenges, seasons of joy and seasons of suffering. And if you've had children, you know both of those. We are the sandwich generation, helping children still and grandchildren, as well as our aging parents. Many of you know that my mother died in the past month here, and I know that many others of you have had parents die and had to help them in their final years, and perhaps you're still doing that. So we are here this morning to remember with Thanksgiving our high school classmates. I said, when you look at their pictures, we remember them like we see them there from high school days, but of course, they would have changed like us. They didn't get the chance to change as much as us or go through all of the seasons of life that we've experienced, but they had change in their life too. And as we watch the memorial video in a few moments, I invite you to give thanks for each friend up there that you see and the memories that you had with them. And throughout this weekend, I hope we as common human beings can share with one another our personal seasons of life, because we have so much in common. I visited with friends on Thursday night and learned things about their family that had strong connections to my family's experience, and I think we can all find the same. We have experienced times of planting and times of reaping, times of dancing and times of mourning, and hopefully more dancing tonight, huh? And mostly times of laughter, as we remember some of the crazy teenage things we did and now we can really talk about.
Maybe.
Because our kids aren't here, they're not. And the fun times we shared during our St. Lucie Park high school days back in the late 1960s. So let's have a great weekend, and I know the memorial video is next. It will be very moving, and then we'll wrap up with a couple things after that.